the TNT Effect, the Athletes Podcast. I'm Dr. Tiara, Doctor of Physical Therapy and Certified Athletic Trainer. Today, I'm speaking with Kristen Hamilton. She's a forward for the North Carolina Courage. And Kristen, what's up? How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So you're like killing it right now. You have so much going on. I mean, your background is pretty impressive. And so I want you to tell us about your background, starting with like how you got started in the sport and just that journey to get to where you are now.
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy journey. I started when I was 4 years old. I think every American child has grown up playing soccer. For me, it was my next door neighbor who was playing, and he was a little bit older than me, and I just looked up to him so much and ended up going to one of his games. And I just asked my mom to sign me up, and I've been kind of playing ever since. I grew up in Littleton, Colorado, played here my whole life, went to Columbine High School, played soccer there, went to University of Denver, so kind of just stayed in the area. Played college, obviously college soccer, had a good career there, and then ended up being drafted to the National Women's Soccer League, which is what I'm currently playing in, and I was drafted to the Western New York Flash. That was 2014. I actually ended up tearing my ACL my first year with that club. So that was kind of the first big hurdle I had to get over to kind of establish this career, and then spent a whole year recovering, rehabbing, getting back to it, and then earned a contract 2015, and I've been playing ever since.
So to back it up a little bit, because you said a mouthful there, but to back it up, so during your youth years, did you play in any on any academy teams, on the youth national team or anything like that?
So I never actually did. We have something called ODP, Olympic Development Program, and that was kind of the gateway into the national team stuff that was around, and I just never really had an interest to do it. I went to one ODP training session, and I got there, and they put me at like defender or something, and I was really upset about it. I was really mad about it. So I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I just never really got into that. And then when I hit college, I remember my coach pulling me aside and saying, you know, the youth national team, you're like kind of next on the list to be called in as a forward. Is this something you're interested in? And then that kind of just never panned out. So yeah, my path to my first cap with the national team last year is pretty unconventional in the sense that, I was never really in youth camps.
So in the grand scheme of things, it is possible to get connected with the national team without having to go through that pathway.
Absolutely. I think it's probably more difficult. You grow up in that system, and the coaches see you for so long, and they see you grow and develop. And when you're not really in that system, they don't get to see your growth necessarily in that setting. So I think it is probably a little bit more difficult, but yeah, it's absolutely possible.
I mean, it's more difficult, but it's pretty sweet when you do get the opportunity and you're like, man, you grind it out for so long, and then there's the opportunity, and it's like, okay, all right, absolutely. Somebody's watching, somebody's seeing me. Okay, cool. Yeah. So when you were younger, did you ever dream of becoming a pro athlete?
I did. I think I always wrote on my paper when it was, what do you want to be when you're older? Pro soccer player, pro soccer player, pro soccer player. But, the history of pro leagues in the U.S. has been so rocky. There's been 3 leagues, and the first 2 folded within 3 years. So it just never seemed like a really viable path. It never stopped me from dreaming of doing it, obviously. And when I was growing up, it didn't seem feasible to go overseas right away and play professionally there. So I kind of had the mindset of playing in the U.S. and playing pro in the U.S. And I always wanted to do that. And like I said, the leagues were so turbulent that it was kind of, I never knew if that would kind of come to fruition.
And you had the opportunity to play overseas in Australia. And so comparing NWSL with the W League, how was that?
It was different. It was awesome. First of all, the team, the club, everyone I played with there, everyone I met was just incredible. Professionalism of the club I was at was great too. So in terms of that, and facilities that I was training in were definitely comparable just to the NWSL. access to trainers and physios and weight room and video sessions, stuff like that, that makes the NWSL a very professional league. Definitely translated. I can't speak for other clubs because I don't know how they're ran, but for our club, it was definitely professional. But in terms of the competition, it's definitely a little bit lower competition, a little bit lower speed. And I think it's just due to they have young players. They don't have a college system there. So when they go to continue their careers after youth soccer, they go straight into playing in the W League. So there's young girls, 15 to 17-year-old girls playing in this league. Whereas in America, you're going to college soccer first, and then you're getting those 4 years to establish kind of how to recover, how to train, how to kind of be more of a professional, and they don't really have that kind of transition over there. So you definitely saw the gap in maturity and then speed of play a little bit. But it was fun. It was kind of a new role for me to kind of get to mentor some younger players.
Was it difficult for you transitioning from college to pro?
It was harder than it looks. When I remember being in college watching the NWSL, and I was like, oh, we could play at that level, we could do that. And then you get out on the field and it's a lot faster than you think.
Very different.
That's very, very different. So the speed of play for sure was a big thing to get used to and learn. For me, and for most players, it takes about a week, and you can kind of see the younger players get in. They just start to realize that everything has to be one touch, two touch. Your thought process has to be quicker. Things have to kind of click a lot faster than they did in college, and you don't have as much time on the ball. So it was definitely different. I think that was probably the biggest transition. And then the fact that we're doing this for a job, you're doing it for money, you're doing it for pay. So in college, there were girls who were only there because they're getting their school paid for, so you have some girls that aren't taking soccer as seriously as you are per se. And so that can kind of be frustrating. So when you get to the pro level, everyone's there because they want to play. And so it's 100% all the time. So it was cool.
Do you feel like there's a lot of pressure because this is your job, like your career? So I have to perform well, right? Or at least in my mind, that's how it is.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, it's a job, and then first and foremost, it's a business as well. So you got to look at it from the general manager side, the owner side, the coach's side. It is a business, and if you're not winning, if you're not a successful team or organization, they need to make changes. So at the end of the day, my first year in the league was probably the most stressed I had been. It was just 2015 and under a different head coach, and we actually weren't doing very well. And it seemed like every week they're bringing in a new player and a new player and a new player, and everyone was worried constantly that you were going to be the next player cut, that person was going to come in and take your spot, so that was by far the most stressed I've been. And you're just like, a new one's coming in, who knows what, the coach is going to like her better than they like you. And there's really no job security in the sense that our contracts are semi-guaranteed. So you could just be waived and then that's it.
That's it.
So I'm like, dang, and there's a roster freeze date, but it's right before the season ends. So I'm like, there's really no security in that. So yeah, definitely a stressful time. I feel a little more secure now, but
that's good. I mean, now that you've been able to play, because you told us that you tore your ACL. Mm-hmm. So walk us through that journey, because that was pretty traumatic in a sense.
Yeah. For me, it was so difficult because it was my first injury. I, all through college, had nothing. I played and started every single one of my college games, never missed a minute. So for things like that, and then I go and do one of the worst injuries you can have, kind of in my first preseason game with the club, mentally, I was just so defeated. At first, I was just like, man, I was so close to accomplishing my dreams, things that I've dreamt about for so long to become a pro. And so initially I was mad, frustrated. And then you go through I can't change anything about it now. So dwelling on the past isn't going to fix my knee. So right. All I can do now is
the stages of grief.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I can't just keep dwelling on this. I got to focus on getting, set a goal. Where do I want to be at next year at this point, and get myself there. So I tore my MCL, my ACL, and I actually ended up having a microfracture as well done. which I'm thankful that took. And my knee feels great now, but yeah, really good. But so it was a long recovery process. I was in a straight leg brace for 6 weeks before surgery, and then I had surgery, and then I was in a brace for 6 weeks after that, non-weight bearing for, like 3 months. And it was just, that was probably the hardest part, is just not being able to walk around when I'm so used to being so active. Couldn't sleep well, I wasn't spending any energy. I just couldn't waste enough that I would sleep well at night. So it was a rough process there for like the first 3 months. And then once I started being able to walk and see progress, the little milestones that you can hit, and each day see growth and progress, then that was kind of motivation to just keep pushing and keep doing what I'm doing. And then I finally started being able to run, and stayed in touch with the coaches out in New York, and just ended up getting myself back out there.
So what type of support did you get during that time? Whether it was support from coaches, the sports medicine staff, and, if there was sports psychology, any of those staff members?
Yeah, definitely. So the coach that I had out there when I hurt myself, he was great. When I would reach out to him, he would talk about how, just focus on getting myself back and healthy, and I can get into preseason next year. And so having just that initial hope of, okay, he's seen what I can do for a week, and he wants me back out here next year if I can get myself ready. So initially, first and foremost, that was kind of my big motivation. And then from there, my family was great. My mom and sister were always at my side, always helping me, always pushing me, and making sure that I was mentally in a right place, because it's tough. And I think people think of it more of as a physical injury, which it is, but mentally it's so tough to get through. And I don't think that side of it was really talked about much, even when I was going through it, as much as it is now, kind of. So I actually didn't see any sports psychs or anything. I just kind of had the medical staff at University of Denver as well, that they kept seeing me, and they were allowing me to come in and see the strength coaches there, and use the trainers there, and physical therapists and stuff. So that was really cool to have, kind of my university that I built my career with, kind of just help build me back up and get me ready for next season.
And that's actually pretty helpful, where you came from, the college that you came from. And I think this happens at a lot of different universities and colleges, where they are, even though the athlete left, they are still some form of support for the athlete when they come back, for what it is they may need. If they're training for the Olympics, maybe they need a facility to train at. And so, there's still that support system there too. And so I think that's a really good thing for athletes.
Yeah, it was awesome. They were great. No, everyone just you would text someone and be like, yep, I can see you this time, see you there. And I would just drive up and be able to get in the weight room whenever I wanted, be able to see physical therapists whenever I wanted. It was just, I don't think I would have gotten back as quickly without them, for sure.
Nice. And so throughout everything that you've been through at this point, and even as you continue your career, how do you discipline yourself on a day-to-day basis to continue to perform at such an elite level?
Yeah, it's tough. We have a long off season, so I feel like the off season is probably the biggest place where I find it to be difficult to make sure I'm, staying disciplined, like you said, because in season it's easy. You have a game on the weekend, and you got to be prepared for it. And if you want to play minutes, you have to be the best player you can be. You have to be the best mentally, physically that you can be. So in season, I feel like it's fairly easy. It's when you don't have the competition to look forward to, and obviously this year in particular with COVID and it being very unknown with games and stuff, trying to keep in your mind, all right, I'm preparing for next season, but it's 4 months away. So I'm like, dang, like what do I do? But I do think it's important to give yourself rest. I'm finished a season, I'm not going to just go 100% right away. Like I rest is extremely important. But yeah, I think for me as like an elite athlete, it's that 1 extra percent. And if you can increase your game and your performance and your strength, your speed, your physicality, your technique, 1 extra percentage, that might be what gets you the full-time starting spot over somebody else. So I think for me, just the prospect of what the goal is and what I want to accomplish is kind of what keeps me on a straight path.
Absolutely. Having that goal and then those little steps to get to it is definitely imperative to your discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned COVID.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about the Challenge Cup and being in the bubble and even now. So tell us about how that experience has been.
So I came back from Australia and it was kind of just blew up. I came back in March, like March 16th, I think, this year. And
oh, you were thick of it, like
yeah,
right when it was.
Like I got right here, and our preseason had been going for a week, and it was canceled. Like everything was just done. So from that point to the Challenge Cup was tough as well, because it was a pretty strict quarantine within states as well. So it was, you weren't even supposed to hang out with your teammates, you weren't supposed to hang out with anybody, and we were doing individual like training sessions with just you and your roommate out on the field at certain times, and you couldn't really see anybody. So that was tough because there was no competition in sight. Again, kind of that same thought that I was saying before, is that we didn't know when we were going to play games. We didn't know even about really the Challenge Cup at this point. So at this point I was like, well, let's stay fit and hope there's some sort of season, I guess. And then, the NWSL they were great throughout the whole planning of the Challenge Cup. It was really professionally done, and they got the voice and the opinion of the players. The players union did a really great job, advocating for all the players and making sure it was a really safe environment. And it went obviously very successfully. When we were in the bubble, we had no positive tests. It was unfortunate that Orlando couldn't make the tournament as well.
Yeah, that hurt. I'm pretty sure that was pretty.
I know I was gutted for them. Like, you just don't wish that upon anyone. Everybody at this level just wants to play games and wants to play, and they just couldn't. I felt so bad. There's girls who were coming back from having kids and might be their last seasons, and I'm like, dang, like this is just I felt so bad. I felt so bad for them.
2020 has been a hard hitter.
Yeah, it has. It really has. Yeah, so then we got to the Challenge Cup, and it was great. Like I said, the bubble was extremely safe. It was challenging, but it was safe, and we felt comfortable, and it was run really well. But it was tough mentally, like just sitting in a hotel room for a month, and you could go to like team rooms, like shared rooms, but like you couldn't do anything besides walk around the outside of the hotel, like within the perimeter of the hotel with your mask on, and like it was a really hard experience, but I think very successful. And I am obviously grateful to all the sponsors who helped put on a successful event, and CBS airing the games, which we had viewership numbers which were higher than any.
High.
Yeah, they were very high. They were bigger than some of the English Premier League games and stuff like that. So that was really cool. I think overall it was a great success, and it was good to get kind of I don't think many teams get a like knockout style tournament, and they don't get to really play under those conditions very much. And I'm fortunate enough to have been with a team who's made it to playoffs, so you kind of get to experience those knockout games, but half the teams don't get to experience like the pressures and the different things that come along with that. So it was kind of a cool opportunity for a lot of teams.
Yeah, it was definitely a different type of scenario, because you had everybody pretty much from ground zero. Like, you're starting, it's an even playing field. Like, you had players who may have opted out, like some big name players who may have opted out. Then you had some players who got injured. Then you're like, okay, now you have players who may not have gotten an opportunity. Now they're playing. And so you have teams who like went further, who you didn't expect to go further. So it was a pretty different type of playoff experience.
It was, and it was exciting. And I think, Houston winning it all, it's cool. And I think people want to see that, and they like seeing other teams flourish and kind of come into their own. But like you said, there was injuries, and that was kind of the big risk of going into the bubble with such a short preseason, is are we going to be ready? And we're going with a short preseason, we're going into altitude, and then you're saying, all right, play this many games in a really short period of time. So everyone was actually very concerned about the injury risk. And I think the players who opted out, that was probably one of the main reasons, was risk of injury, because just lack of preparation, and older players and even younger players were like, I don't know if I can risk that. So yeah, it was a challenge.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. It was a challenge, and I think you did see some injuries, which are extremely unfortunate. And that's, is the nature of the game, but at the same time, that was tough going into that kind of setting.
Yeah, and I imagine making the decision to play versus not to play was pretty challenging for everyone too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we talked about challenges of playing the game. What are some things that you enjoy the most about playing soccer?
Oh man, by far the friendships. That's, hands down. I'm still friends with my very first soccer team. I met my best friend when I was 4 years old, and we've been best friends ever since. So even just stemming from that, I've a handful of girls that I play college soccer with that are my best friends today as well. So and I've just met so many incredible people. So definitely the friendships that I've made, and that will be lifelong. And then on top of that, the travel. You get to see different cities and see different states, and you're playing a sport for a living. That's kind of cool. How many people dream of doing that, and you are actually living that. So sometimes when I'm feeling frustrated or upset about maybe not playing as many minutes as I want to play, or whatever my kind of struggles might be, I kind of try to remind myself that I'm one of 200 girls in the US who are getting to play professionally, and out of thousands and thousands of girls who have dreamt of doing this. So I'm like, it's really cool, and helps keep me grateful for kind of the opportunities that I've been given and stuff. So yeah, just, I mean, like I said, I'm getting paid to play a sport and play a game and get to travel with my best friends.
Is it difficult being away from family and friends?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest and toughest things for sure. All my life has been in Colorado, so I have most of my family there, most of my best friends here, and I've missed so many things, and that's one thing that sucks. Like, I've missed a lot of my really good friends' weddings. I've missed babies being born, and family events and reunions and Christmases and Thanksgivings, and just time, with your loved ones. And those are the sacrifices I've kind of had to make to get here. And I think those are the little things you don't necessarily think of when you choose to do this. And so it's been tough, because you can't just be like, oh, I'm leaving to go to a friend's wedding. If it's your best friend and you're in the wedding, or it's your sister and you're in the wedding, yeah, you can ask to miss a game and get there. But if you're just going to go to a random friend's wedding, it's kind of difficult to ask to miss a game for, it's your job, and each game's like extremely important throughout the season. So it's tough. That's probably the hardest part of it all. Yeah.
I think a lot of people look at professional athletes and they may say, oh, they're playing sports, they get to travel, they make a lot of money. For some, they make a lot of money.
Like, I don't know what sport you're talking about.
right. But the sacrifices that you all have to make, it is a huge sacrifice, and it is to our entertainment, right? Obviously it's beneficial for you because you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about, or most people anyway. And so, but there's so much, because there's life beyond sports. So all of those opportunities, like going to a wedding, babies being born, you don't get that back.
Yeah, exactly. And looking back, I've missed a couple of my really good friends' weddings, and I think about it and I'm like, man, I'm just so bummed that I couldn't have been there with them for. And it's, they're big events too. It's not like you said, they're weddings, and hopefully they only happen once.
Right.
Kids, and my sister is pregnant. She just told me she's pregnant, and she's due and it's going to be right in my season. And she's like, are you even going to be able to make it? And I'm like, man, this is tough. This is hard. I'm like, yeah, I would like to say yes, 100%, but I can't guarantee that. And I can't promise that. And that's hard because they want you there as well as you wanting to be there. So, yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, there's so many times you have those unknown answers. And I don't know, sometimes they may not understand why, but then you have some who are really supportive and they do understand.
Yeah.
And so what are some things that you've learned, important lifelong lessons that you've learned during your career?
I guess it's probably not unique in my career, but just patience and learning to accept kind of where you're at in that specific time in your life. So for me, I was sitting on the bench for 2 years, like hardly ever got any minutes and whatever, but I just kind of had to redefine my role within the team and understanding that, okay, this might be where I'm supposed to be right now. And why am I in this position? And do I think I deserve to be playing more? Yeah, of course. But I'm going to do everything I can in this moment to be the best teammate I can be, the best version of myself I can be, kind of where I'm at and the opportunities I'm kind of given. So I think for me, it's just kind of accepting that, and not to say you get complacent and just don't try to, push that further, get higher in life, or get to where you want to be. But I think it's important to learn lessons at the moments you're at in life.
Good. So last week I interviewed one of your coaches, actually, Coach Sean, and I asked him if one of your athletes, current or former athletes, were asked what type of impact he's had on their lives, what would they say? So this is actually a perfect opportunity for me to ask that question. So hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot. If you want to answer, it's fine. But what type of impact has he had on your life, either as a player or even personally?
Oh, he's such a great guy. Just him and his character. He came onto our team as just a volunteer coach, and to be a volunteer anything, I think it takes a special person. He wanted to learn, he wanted to grow and become, a great head coach, and I think he will be a phenomenal head coach someday. And a lot of players that you'll talk to on our team, and me specifically, he's done so much for me individually. He's so smart and knows the game, and he's put in so much effort off the field with our video and making sure that sessions run smoothly. And he's done individual stuff with me on the side when I was coming back from injuries, and all these little things that he puts together, and he's puts everything into it all the time. And he's so selfless about it. It's so cool. So just seeing him be a volunteer, like I said, volunteer to come and do this and give so much of his time to bettering us. And he is the epitome of patience. He's come and he deserves to be in a higher position in our team, no doubt about it. And he will be a higher position. He'll be a head coach someday for sure. But in the moment, he is the absolute epitome of patience. So yeah, he's been great.
I'll let him know that I paid you to say that. I'm just playing.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he is a great guy. Guy. So outside of soccer, do you have any other things going on? Any businesses or nonprofit organizations or anything that's happening?
I did start Verge Elite Soccer, which was soccer camps and clinics in the Denver area. I had run a few of those, but I kind of put that business on hold while I was in Australia last year, so I couldn't really have an off season to run that. But me and my best friend that I was telling you about before, her name's Katie, and she and I had always dreamt of either starting a gym together or starting a club together, or doing soccer trainings or a little business. And so we just decided to do it and pull the trigger. And so we started Verge Elite, and that was 2 years ago now. And it was a good first year. It was a good learning experience for the first year. But for now, yeah, that's kind of on pause for me as I see what my off seasons. I'd like to continue to play overseas for a little while in my off seasons if available. So, yeah. So that's kind of it for now. And us as the Courage have, we've talked about having sorry, my dog's barking. I don't know if you can hear it. Yeah, she goes crazy. She's nuts. Yeah, sorry. And so us as the Courage, we've, in the wake of all the social injustices that have going on and all the initiatives that we've kind of been experiencing, and obviously it's been experiencing for an extremely long time, but so much has been brought to the forefront of conversations. And, we've made a commitment. We want to do what we can in our community and Cary to help in a certain way we can. So we haven't officially established a foundation yet, but that's kind of in the works of establishing a foundation that we can run as players to benefit the Black community and the underprivileged community in Cary and Raleigh. So that's in the works. So I can't give you specific details yet, but that's something we are working towards as well.
I'm glad that you actually brought that up about the injustices, because a lot of people believe that, politics doesn't belong in sports. And honestly, that's not political. That's just human. Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't understand. I don't understand that point at all, because we live in the same America. And so you want us to just go and perform on the weekend for you so you can be distracted from politics, but all the issues that we feel like we feel strongly about and we feel like we want to stand up for, you don't think we have a voice or should have a voice in that. And I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, because it does happen in sports. I mean, there are players and athletes who are ostracized for various reasons, right? And one being the color of their skin, how they choose to live their lives and different things of that nature. Like, it is in sports, whether you want it to be or not. You may not see it or hear about it, but it's there, right?
Absolutely. And I obviously am probably not the person to be a voice for, the Black players in the NWSL, but I've had so many conversations with all of them, and with the girls on our team specifically, Crystal Dunn, Lynn Williams, Addison Merrick. All those girls have been so great at being vocal and open and honest about sharing their experiences. And, me being a white player throughout all of my career, I haven't experienced even close to what they've experienced. I haven't even seen some of the stuff that they talk about, that they experience on maybe a daily basis. So for me to kind of even open my eyes to what they deal with and how it is within sport. And, Crystal Dunn's big point kind of was how commentators speak of Black athletes, and just only using terms of speed and power and athleticism. And she's like, I've cultivated my game to be technical, and I've focused so much on being a technical, smart player, because I didn't want that stereotype of just being a fast, athletic girl. I wanted to be the smart player, the one who knows the game really well, can read the game. And I thought that was very interesting to listen to her kind of speak about as well. So yeah, it's a learning experience this year for everyone. And I think it's important to self-reflect and say, hey, I probably haven't been perfect in this, and how can I help be an ally and help push all of these things forward.
Absolutely. So before we get into the questions from parents, what are some things that you would tell younger players who aspire to play at the college level and even at the professional level?
I would just say, one, understand the sacrifices for sure. If this is something you truly want to do, it does take sacrifice. And even through college, it took sacrifice. We couldn't go to the parties we want to go to. We couldn't do the things on the weekend we necessarily wanted to do all the time. So just kind of understanding that. But if you have something you're good at, get great at it. If you have something you're bad at, get good at it. Just continue to improve your game that 1%. And dedication, work hard, listen to your coaches, be coachable is probably a big thing. Be coachable. And if somebody's, be able to take some constructive criticism, I think is a really important characteristic to have.
Great points. Absolute great points. Okay, so question number 1. What do you think was the greatest factor in your success? Was it your mental game, physical conditioning, or technical skills, or anything else?
In my success, I would say my work ethic. I think just being nonstop. If it's hard to beat a player who outworks you. So I think it's just staying humble enough to work hard, because I think when you get to a point where you think you're too good to work hard is a downfall, is like a point where you could fall off. So staying humble, I guess, and then my work ethic.
All right, question number 2. Are all the camps and all the dollars spent worth it, or is it just a natural born talent to be a pro?
I definitely think it's a little bit of both. You can see from a young age if a kid's athletic or not. But I do think it's cool to go to camps and clinics, and especially when they do the college showcase stuff, because some girls don't have the platform to be seen. So these camps are an opportunity for players to get seen. So I do think that some of them are worth it. And I mean, there's so many online apps these days as well. Techne Futbol, which is created by our Players Association founder, Yael, Averbuch, is just an online app you can just download, and it takes you through training sessions and little skills and stuff that you can do on the side. And so doing stuff like that at home is huge. But I think just being around other players that you're competitive with, doing stuff on your own is great, and it's one thing, but it's totally different to play against players and seeing how others play. And you can pick things up from other people, and you can learn from other people probably more than you do just watching videos and stuff. So I think it's important to be immersed in it. So I guess there's a side of both things.
A side of both. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what is your end goal, and if the athlete or your child is really has that focus and the hunger to get to that level, that's when it becomes worth it. Because if they don't, then you're just throwing dollars.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Yeah, if they don't want to be there, then there's no point in putting them
there. This one is I guess a comical one. Cake or pie?
Ooh, pie.
Pie. What kind of pie?
Apple pie.
No. I don't like cooked fruit.
See, my mom doesn't either. I've been cooking a lot at home, and she's like, no, I can't do that. But I do love a good cheesecake. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What's next? Who was your biggest inspiration?
I think we always get these questions. Honestly, probably the whole 1999 Women's World Cup winning team. I think that was kind of the first huge women's sport that we saw on TV, and they're winning championships, and it was so inspirational that just seeing that kind of moment was probably in itself one of the most inspiring moments.
That 99 team, it inspired so many people.
Oh, yeah.
So many people. Okay, let's see. We answered that question already. Did you ever want to quit? If so, why? And what made you change your mind and keep going?
Yeah, the year after I tore my ACL and came back to playing, I was not playing hardly at all. I wasn't traveling to away trips. That was tough. And so I would go home. I went home that off season, and I was like, man, all my friends from college I play with they have great jobs and they're making great money. And, should I just stop doing this and just get a job and start to build my future and make money? And, I had a definite moment where I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this in this role. For me, what made me say is I had a conversation with my best friend, Katie, and she was like, dude, everybody wants to be doing what you're doing. And she's like, you have the rest of your life to get a desk job and work and do whatever you want. And she's like, people would kill to be in your position. She's like, if you're that unhappy, like try to find another team maybe, and just kind of motivated me to, and like I said, kind of open my eyes to be like, I'm one of 200 girls getting to do this, and I shouldn't be taking it for granted. And yeah, I want to be, playing more and be in a different position than I am, and I need to work harder to get there. And so that kind of made me realize and say like, yeah, this is what I want to keep doing for as long as I can keep doing it.
Kudos to Katie.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out.
Yep. And okay, speaking of money, how do you manage your money? Because, as an NWSL player, without endorsements or whatever, I don't know if you have endorsements, but, that's really where a lot of money comes from the endorsements, but strictly from your pay with your team. How are you able to manage your finances?
Well, I can't even think of the word. I graduated with a degree in finance. What is that? Like, I can't even think of the word I'm thinking. Anyway, I did graduate college, I swear. So yeah, my degree is in finance. So I love money. I love numbers. It's been kind of something that I'm good at. I'm really good at organizing things. I like to stay organized. But having said that, my first couple years in the league, I was making nothing. So I was lucky enough to be able to come home in the off season and stay with my mom and live for free. Now that the minimum wage is, I think it's 20,000 this year, which sounds like nothing, but you're also getting your housing paid for year round. So you have year-round housing, you have free insurance. Basically all we pay, unless you have a car payment, all we pay is your house bills, which is gas, electric, water, and your cable, which really isn't much. So if you're good with your money and you're smart about it, you really can save money. It does take a little discipline. And for me, it was finding, not just going to the grocery store and buying everything I wanted. I actually have an app on my phone called Mealime, and it builds your grocery list for you so you don't waste any food. And it is like the greatest app I've ever found ever. So little things like that, where finding cheap meals if I need to save money, cheap meals that are cheap but are still nutritious for me and can help fuel my body. But yeah, it just takes discipline, I would say, mainly. And I, of course, me being a nerd and finance nerd, I like built a spreadsheet for myself, a little budget spreadsheet for myself. Everyone makes fun of me for it, but it works. So that's kind of what I do. It's just, if you see where your money's going, is what I would say. Like, if you look at your bank account and you see where it's going, or you have a spreadsheet and see where it's going, it's a lot easier to save, because you're like, wow, I'm spending a lot of money on this. Spending a lot of money on this. So if I'm seeing that, and then I'm like, oh, I can't eat out this week because I already spent $200 eating out. So
right, you can actually see it.
Yeah, you see where it's going, and that's where I'm like, oh. But yeah, so that's kind of what I do. So
let's step back for a second. You mentioned finding cheap meals that are still nutritious, because it is important for you to fuel your body properly. And so what are some things that you like to eat?
I honestly like everything. Like, I'm the least picky eater on the face of the planet. But in terms of finding like cheap meals and stuff, when I am low on money and I am low for the week or my budget or whatever, rice is always really cheap, and brown rice is cheap. And my biggest thing, like, I'll have brown rice, broccoli, and chicken, but I'll make a sauce and go with it. And usually for me, like, that's enough to mix up the meals, like a new sauce or a fresh sauce to put on it. Like a peanut saute sauce, or honestly, sometimes I've even just put ranch on my rice and stuff. I'm like, you know what? It goes on everything, right? No, but so for me, like, that's kind of my cheap go-to meal. Even tuna, like cans of tuna. I don't know, some people don't like canned tuna, but I don't mind it. So even just having canned tuna and sweet potato, rice and tuna and broccoli, just honestly cheap, really easy meals. And I would just spice it up with some sauces. But if I could go gourmet, I would have Asian food all day, every day.
Yes. And you know what? If you were eating out Asian food, they tend to give you a lot, so you can eat off of it at least twice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got dinner and lunch.
Exactly. I love it. Beans are cheap too.
Oh yes, Very cheap.
Okay, so next question. How do you respond to unfair favoritism with coaching?
It's tough because it's so frustrating and sometimes it's so blatant and you just see it and you're like I did the same thing and got yelled at and they did the same thing and got praised. I'm like, what is going on? So that's tough because you can't really control what the coach thinks of you. All you can kind of control is yourself. So for me, it was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep doing the right things. You know, I'm not going to get mad about it and then stop working hard at training because I know I'm just going to get yelled at anyway. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to try to change his mind by working hard, not by words. You know, I'm not going to be like, well, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not going to mouth off to a coach ever. I'm not going to do that. But how I'm going to try to change the coach's mind is my work on the field. So if he's mad at me for giving the ball away, I'm going to make sure my passing completion is higher. I'm going to work on that. And so I would say just put your head down and work and just continue to do all the right things. And eventually somebody will notice and it'll pay off.
So in essence, your actions will speak louder than your words.
Absolutely.
Okay. What would you tell your 14-year-old self now?
I probably, honestly, talking about like not doing the ODP stuff, I probably would be like, go to those trainings and go and do it and just have fun and be involved in that. So I guess take opportunities when they're presented, you know, don't turn anything down. Make sure that, don't not turn anything down. But if an opportunity presents itself and you're a little skeptical about it, then I would probably be like, hey, go and try that because you never know.
Let's see. Okay. Someone wants to know, are you leaving to play in Europe? Okay. Right. Because we have a number of players who have left and now they're in Europe.
Yeah.
So
people keep thinking that like the NWSL is falling apart because these players are leaving for Europe, but like I don't know if people understand that they're loans. Like they're loan deals. So the club, the US NWSL teams own their rights still. They have to come back. Like it's not like they're just gone for good. So like a lot of these players, I'm like, they're coming back. They're on loan because we didn't have many games this year. So they're going to play and get game minutes in before next season in the NWSL. So you'll see a lot of those girls return. A lot.
And also the Olympics.
You'll see 90% of those girls return. And so for me, I would love to go play in Australia again, just on loan, but I am not leaving for Europe this year or probably not anytime soon, unless it was an off-season loan. But I think that NWSL is the most competitive, highest league in the world. So I kind of want to stay in this environment as long as I can. And then if the opportunity presents itself in the off-season, I'd go for that.
Makes sense. Let's see. Who was your favorite coach to play for and why? So this is from elementary school all the way up until now. And then the second part to that question is who is your favorite team and why soccer? So favorite coach.
Favorite coach would probably be, that's tough. I honestly have only had one bad coach, and I think that's pretty rare. So my club coach, my college coach, and Paul Riley have been great. So I guess in terms of just where I'm at now, Paul would probably be my favorite coach to play for. He really, truly knows how to get the best out of every player. And you've seen so many girls come into our team and not be even looked at by the national team by the end of a season or what with Paul, that players have completely developed and turned around and gotten looks with the national team. So Paul, and then my club coach growing up kind of instilled the work ethic in us. We ran a lot, but he definitely instilled that work ethic in me, and I would not be here without him and his wife.
Which team was your favorite
to play for?
Yes.
Honestly, probably the Western New York Flash. When Paul took over that first year was probably the most fun because it was so unexpected that we won the championship that year. So every time we won a game, it was like 5-4 because we couldn't defend, but we could score goals. So we would win games like 5-4, 3-4, like stuff like that. So we were like just completely underdogs. And we've kind of kept that mentality through. And I think that's why we've been so successful, continue to be successful. But just that team in general, people were like, how on earth are they winning games? Because on paper, we were a bunch of no-name people. Like there's just all these random girls thrown together, and Paul always jokes, he calls us the Bad News Bears. He said that we couldn't string 5 passes together at training. So it was funny. So I think that just because it was so unexpected.
And the last part to that question, why soccer?
Why soccer? Why I like soccer?
Yeah, why you play soccer? Why you chose soccer?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of similar to stuff I've said, is the people you meet and the experiences that I've gotten. If you can't get it anywhere else, you talk to people, and I'm just away for the weekend. I get to travel, and I'm home, and my job is to stay in shape and fit, and I wouldn't trade it for anything at the moment. I've met just incredible people, been to incredible places, got to experience championships and really high highs and really low lows. But yeah, it's been awesome.
Good. This next question has nothing to do with soccer.
That's
but why do kamikaze pilots wear helmets?
In the hopes they survive. I don't know.
Yeah, I almost didn't ask that question, but I said okay.
I don't know. You know, those questions we'll just leave the universe to answer.
Okay. What do you know now as an athlete that you wish you knew as a teen?
I probably would say the importance of recovery as a teen, and it's probably not as important when you're younger because your body just recovers so fast. Now that I'm older, I'm like, dang, I'm feeling it. Like I play a game and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm hurting. So, but I learned that kind of late, and I think you just take care of your body the whole time, and you know, I think it just reduces your risk of injury, reduces, you know, a lot of pain you go through. Just, but yeah, I'd just say the importance of recovery probably.
That's a good one. I like that. What are your top 5 speed and agility workouts and why?
Oh, well, I guess on my own, it's because when we're with the team, we have a strength and conditioning coach. So he usually does the speed work and stuff with us. In the off season, I like agility ladders a lot. Like I'll use ladders and, you know, do whatever exercises through those and do 5 yards sprint after, 10 yards sprint after, 15 yards sprint after. And I just feel like if I continue to do those, I'm lighter on my feet, and I just feel just keeping that like quick, sharp, fast twitch muscle going. And I think it's really important to get sprints in throughout the week. Whether that's, I think it's important to get sprints in before a game. You can't just like train at a low pace and never sprint and then get into a game and expect to sprint at 100% and not hurt yourself. So I think it's really important to get in like high speed sprinting, at least 5 sprints, try to hit max speed a couple times, at least once a week. So for me, I at least try to keep that throughout my off season as well. So I'll do sprints. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say anything like extremely specific that I necessarily do on the daily basis, but I usually try to play soccer, like pick up as well on the side, and that kind of, it's like built in speed and agility a bit. So.
Okay, what do you do to make money in the off season? Kind of touched on it a little bit, but
I still do some like individual sessions and stuff with girls. I had a good little clientele base that I keep in touch with, and they're great. They would text me throughout the season and watch games, and so that was really cool. So just little training sessions, I guess, would be one of the main things, and then yeah, I guess obviously last year I played in Australia, so that was kind of my way to make money in the off season as well. So coaching, playing, hopefully playing would be ideal. Continue to play and get paid, but
right.
yeah.
But outside of that, yeah, being able to leverage your skills, your talent, your knowledge of the game.
Exactly. So yeah, just mainly small sessions and stuff.
Okay, good. Okay, the last question is, do you stick out a very bad high school team the following season or get back with your club team to train? So the end game is a small college or a small school in college like NCCAA, the NAIA, or like maybe D2. And so, yeah, ultimately they just want to know, do you continue to play on a bad team in your high school or go to your club team?
Sometimes, honestly, my high school team was really bad when I was playing, but it wasn't like how the pressure nowadays for kids to play year-round club soccer is really high. It wasn't really like that for me growing up. But I will say college soccer was some of the best times. You know, it was way lower quality, but in saying that, I feel like I built a lot of confidence in that kind of environment because, you know, maybe you're not the best on your club team, but you go to a high school team and you're the best. And I think confidence is extremely important to success. So if you can build some confidence in a league that's maybe a little bit lower, I think that can actually translate well to the club team. It's probably good to mix in a bit so you're not just training at a low level for months and months and months. But if you can, you know, play games and score goals or defend whatever position they play, I don't know. But, you know, being the best on a team is really good for your confidence. So something like that, I think, can be good in a sense, even if the quality is lower.
Okay.
And it's fun. Like it makes soccer fun again. And sometimes club soccer can be it's stressful and it can be hard on kids to feel like it's a constant pressure to stay on the A team and stay on, you know, whatever it is. And I think that high school soccer can just kind of bring the fun back into it. And that's kind of how I felt when I went to Australia. Even though the quality was a little bit lower, it was fun and it just was carefree and stress-free, and it just made soccer like that much more fun again. So I think it can definitely help.
Yeah, I think that and you know, you mentioned kind of mixing it up. I think the high school part in this particular scenario, like you said, maybe build some confidence, but then on the club team, maybe you're not as good on the club team in comparison to some of the other players. So it can kind of balance it out a little bit. Like you're not too cocky, but you're not like,
yeah, exactly.
Your mindset isn't too lowly. Like, man, I suck. Like you can balance it a little bit.
And if the goal is a D2 school or a lower D1 school, there are a lot of D1 schools and there's a lot of small D1 programs. And I think most kids would be shocked at the opportunities at D1 schools. I coached a girl last off season. She was good and she was convinced she wasn't good enough to play at D1. And I was like, you're absolutely good enough to play D1. And she's like, oh, really? Like, talk to her parents and they're like, you think? And I'm like, my mom even said when I started looking at colleges, she was like, is she good enough? I don't know, because she doesn't know much about sports either. But, you know, some parents might not, and they might not really know how good their kid is. And I think it's important to look and send letters out to D1 schools anyway, because you never know.
Right, because there are some players on D1 that you're like, how? Why? But no, sometimes it's just a matter of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that there's always a chance. I mean, the worst they can say is no.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's it. And then you go to the next opportunity.
Yeah, and there are players who walk on and then like outshine some of the scholarship athletes. So it's possible.
Yeah.
Tell everybody how they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Instagram at K_ham17. I actually don't even know my Twitter handle. I think it's KHamilton17.
I'm sure they can Google.
I use Instagram more than I don't tweet very often, but I like, you know, I'll get on there and like some stuff. But Instagram's probably the best way.
Best way to find you.
Yeah, best way to contact me. I have a Facebook page as well, but I don't post much on there.
Okay. What about your business?
Virgilite, there's a Facebook page for that as well. There is an Instagram, but like I said, it's kind of been not really active. So yeah, there won't be any new posts really until we kind of boot things back up.
Okay. I mean, if they wanted to look at what you have going on, do you have a website?
Yep, virgilitesoccer.com.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Kristen.